The doctor looked at the paper in his hands. Then he looked at me with eyes full of pity. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. He took a deep breath, leaned forward and asked a question that made my blood turn into ice. "Madam," he said softly, "who is the person cooking your food every day? Who gives you water to drink? Because what I see in your blood is not your sickness. Someone is feeding you poison." I sat there, freezing cold, as the face of the one person I trusted most in this world came into my mind. The woman I called Mother.
But before we get to that hospital room, let me tell you how this started. My name is Amara. If you saw me walking in the market 2 months ago, you would think I had the perfect life. I am 38 years old and I run a very successful fabric shop in the city. I sell the best lace and Ankara. Women come from far away just to buy from me. I have money, I have a car, and I have a husband, Obina, who is a tall, handsome man. But in our culture, people say a house without the cry of a baby is just a silent hall. For 10 years, Obina and I have been married. And for 10 years, I have prayed. I have cried. I have visited every hospital and every prayer mountain. I drank every herbal mixture my auntie sent from the village, but my stomach remained flat.
Obina was a good man, mostly. He never beat me, he never shouted. But in the last 2 years, I saw the light in his eyes dying. When he looked at me, he did not see his beautiful wife anymore. He saw a dead end. He saw the end of his family name. The pressure from his family was terrible, but the person who surprised me the most was his mother, Mama Chinyere. Mama Chinyere was a strong woman. She had a loud laugh and walked with heavy steps. When other relatives insulted me during family gatherings, calling me a man-woman, Mama Chinyere would chase them away. She would shout, "Leave my daughter alone. God's time is the best. Amara is my daughter and I love her." I loved her for that. I trusted her deeply. So when she called Obina and said she wanted to come and stay with us for a few months, I was happy. She said she wanted to come and cook for me. She said I was working too hard at the shop and the stress was making it hard for me to conceive. She told me over the phone, "I will come and pamper you. I will make you special meals like we do in the village. You will relax and before you know it, you will carry my grandson." I thought it was a blessing. I did not know I was opening the door to my own grave. Mama Chinyere arrived on a Sunday evening with 3 big bags of food items. She brought dried fish, yams, palm oil, and many bundles of roots and herbs wrapped in old newspapers. "Welcome, Mama," I said, kneeling to greet her. She pulled me up and hugged me tight. She smelled like firewood and spices. "Look at you, Amara," she said, touching my face. "You look tired. You are too thin. Don't worry. Mama is here now." From that first day, she took over my kitchen. She told me not to cook anything. She said my only job was to go to the shop, make money, and come home to rest. Every evening after dinner, she had a special routine. She would go into the kitchen and close the door. I would hear the sound of a small pot boiling. The smell was strong, earthy and strange, like wet soil and old leaves. Then she would walk into the living room carrying a large ceramic mug. Steam would be rising from it. "Drink, my daughter," she would say, smiling that warm motherly smile. "This is a special mixture from the oldest herbalist in our village. It cleans the womb. It prepares the body for a baby." The first time I tasted it, I almost gagged. It was bitter, so bitter that it made my tongue feel numb. "Oh, Mama," I complained, putting the cup down. Obina was sitting on the sofa watching the news. He looked at me and said,
Amara, please, just drink it. Mama went through a lot of stress to get those herbs. It is for our own good. Mama Chinyere patted my back gently. Good medicine is never sweet, Amara. The bitterness is what washes away the bad things. Drink it for Obina. Drink it for your future children. I looked at Obina. I saw the desperation in his eyes. I looked at Mama Chinyere. I saw love and care. So I picked up the cup, I closed my eyes, and I drank every drop. Good girl, Mama whispered. Good girl. I went to bed that night feeling loved. I held my stomach and prayed that the bitter tea was working. I did not know that the bitterness was not medicine. It was the taste of betrayal. 2 weeks turned into 1 month. Then 6 weeks passed. Every night I drank the cup, and every morning I woke up feeling heavier than the day before. I was known for my energy. I used to open my shop at 8 a.m. sharp and stand on my feet all day attending to customers. But now, just walking from the bedroom to the kitchen felt like climbing a mountain. My skin, which used to glow like polished bronze, started turning gray and dry. My eyes were always yellow, and the scariest part was my hair. When I combed my hair in the morning, big clumps would come out in the brush. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back. I looked like a ghost. I told Mama Chinyere that the tea was killing me. Mama, I said one evening, my hand shaking, I cannot drink this anymore. It makes me vomit. It makes me dizzy. I think I need to see a doctor. Mama Chinyere laughed, a loud, dismissive sound. She clapped her hands together. Amara, you are too soft, she scolded. This is exactly what the herbalist said would happen. The weakness means the medicine is working. It is fighting the bad things in your body. It is clearing the blockages in your womb. If you stop now, you will spoil everything. I looked at Obina for support. Obina, please, look at me. Obina sighed and dropped his spoon. Amara, why are you so stubborn? My mother is here, helping us. She is cooking for you. She is cleaning, and you are complaining. Just endure it. Do you want a baby or not? His words cut me deeper than any knife. Because I wanted a baby, I stayed silent. I drank the poison, believing it was the price for a child. Then came the second phase of the plan. One Saturday morning, Mama Chinyere came back from the village with a young girl. She introduced her as Neka. This is Neka, Mama said. She is my distant cousin's daughter. She has come to the city to learn a trade. Since you are so sick and weak, Amara, Neka will stay here and help with the house chores. Neka was young, maybe 22 years old. She was everything I was not at that moment. She was fresh, she was plump, her skin was shining with youth. She had hips that moved like water when she walked. Good afternoon, Ma, she greeted me, kneeling down respectfully. But when she looked at me, I saw something in her eyes. It wasn't pity, it was assessment. She was looking at me like I was an old piece of furniture that was about to be thrown away. With Neka in the house, I became a stranger in my own home. Because I was too weak to stand, Neka took over everything. She cooked the meals, she ironed Obina's shirts, she served his food. I would lie on the sofa, covered in a wrapper, because I was always feeling cold, and I would watch them. I watched Neka serve my husband dinner. She would bend low, smiling, and say, "Uncle, is the soup okay? Do you need more water?" And I saw Obina smile back at her, a smile I hadn't seen in years. He looked relaxed. He looked happy. Mama Chinyere would sit in her armchair and watch them too, nodding her head with satisfaction. It felt like they were a happy family, and I was just a sick guest waiting to die. One evening, I heard Mama whisper to Obina in the kitchen, "You see, This is how a home should feel. Peaceful, with a woman who has energy to take care of her husband. I wanted to scream, but I didn't have the strength.
The end came on a Tuesday afternoon. I had forced myself to go to the shop because my workers called me about an issue with a supplier. I shouldn't have driven, but I did. I was standing behind the counter trying to measure a yard of blue lace for a customer. Suddenly, the blue lace started spinning. The sound of the customer's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my heart with an iron hand. "Madam, madam," I heard the customer ask. The last thing I remember was the cold tiled floor hitting my face. I collapsed. By the grace of God, my sister, Chioma, was coming to visit me at the shop that day. She walked in just as I hit the ground. She didn't call Obina first. She didn't call Mama Chinyere. She screamed for help, carried me into her car, and drove like a mad woman to the best private hospital in the city. That decision to take me away from my husband's house is the only reason I am alive to tell you this story today.
I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the sound of machines beeping. My sister, Chioma, was sitting beside my bed, holding my hand so tight it almost hurt. Her eyes were red from crying. The doctor walked in. He didn't look like a man who had good news. This brings us back to where we started, the question that froze my heart. "Madam," the doctor said, looking straight at me, "we ran a comprehensive toxicology screen because your symptoms, the hair loss, the kidney strain, the heart palpitations, did not match any natural infection. We found high levels of a toxic alkaloid in your system. It comes from a specific root, often used for pest control in rural areas." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This is not accidental food poisoning. This substance builds up over time. Someone has been feeding this to you in small doses for weeks." Chioma stood up furious. "I knew it. I knew that witch was up to something."
"Amara," Chioma said, her voice shaking with anger. "Obina and his mother don't know you are in this hospital yet. They think you are at the general hospital because that is where your shop girl told them you went. I am going to your house now. I need to find proof before they clean up the crime scene." "Be careful," I whispered, tears rolling down my face. I was too weak to move, but my mind was finally waking up from the fog. Chioma left me and drove to my house. The house was empty. Obina was at work, and Mama Chinyere and Neka had gone to the general hospital to look for me, just as Chioma planned. Chioma let herself in with the spare key I gave her years ago. She went straight to the guest room where Mama Chinyere slept. The room smelled like that same bitter earth I had been drinking every night. Chioma opened Mama's big travel bag. On top, she found the clothes. Underneath the clothes, she found the bundles of herbs. She took one sniff and knew this was the poison. She took a sample and put it in her purse. But as she was closing the bag, she felt something hard at the very bottom. She lifted the lining of the bag. There was a large brown envelope. Chioma opened it. Inside were two things that made her scream. The first was a medical report. It wasn't mine. It was Neka's. It was dated 3 months ago. It was a pregnancy test result. Positive. Neka was already 4 months pregnant. The second item was even worse. It was a printed list of items for a traditional marriage ceremony. The date was set for 2 months from now. The groom's name, Obina. The bride's name, Neka. Chioma took pictures of everything with her phone. Her hands were shaking. It all made sense now. The poison wasn't just to make me sick. It was to kill me.
Mama Chinyere didn't want a divorce. A divorce is messy. A divorce takes time. But if the barren wife dies of a mysterious illness, the widower is free to marry the young pregnant girl immediately to comfort him. They were planning to bury me and replace me before the grass grew on my grave. When Chioma came back to the hospital and showed me the pictures, something inside me snapped. I didn't cry. I had no tears left. The love I felt for my husband turned into ash. The respect I had for his mother turned into hate. "They want to kill me?" I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "They want to dance on my grave?" I sat up in the bed. I pulled the IV drip out of my arm. Blood trickled down, but I didn't feel it. "Amara, what are you doing?" Chioma asked, scared. "I am going home," I said. "I am going home to eat dinner with my family." "You are not well enough," Chioma cried. I looked at her. "I am not going there to die, sister. I am going there to end this." The doctor tried to stop me, but when he saw the fire in my eyes, he just gave me medication to stabilize my heart for a few hours. I dressed up. I put on my wig. I applied my makeup to hide the yellow sickness in my face. I was ready for the final act. I walked into my house at 7 p.m. Chioma was right behind me carrying my bag. When I entered the living room, the silence was heavy. Obina jumped up from the sofa. Mama Chinyere dropped the remote control. Ineka stood in the corner, her eyes wide. "Amara!" Obina shouted, rushing towards me but stopping a few feet away. "We looked everywhere for you. We went to the general hospital. Where have you been?" I smiled. It was a weak smile, but it hid 1,000 teeth. "I went to a private clinic, my dear husband," I said softly. "I just needed some fluids. I missed my home. I missed Mama's cooking." Mama Chinyere relaxed instantly. She let out a breath she had been holding. She thought I was still the stupid, obedient wife. "Oh, my daughter," she cried, rushing to hug me. "Thank God you are back. You scared us. Sit down, you must be hungry." "I am very hungry, Mama," I said, sitting at the head of the table. "I am starving." We sat for dinner. The air was thick. Chioma sat next to me, her phone in her hand, recording everything under the table. We ate rice and stew in silence. I pushed the food around my plate. Then the moment came. Mama Chinyere stood up and went to the kitchen. She came back with the ceramic mug. The smell of the bitter roots filled the room. "Here, my daughter," she said, placing the steaming cup in front of me. "Drink this. It will give you strength. It will wash away the sickness." I looked at the black liquid. I looked at Obina. He was staring at his plate, refusing to meet my eyes. He knew Neka was pregnant. He knew he was planning to marry her. But did he know his mother was poisoning me? I needed to know. "Obina," I called him. He looked up, startled. "Yes?" "Mama says this tea is good for women," I said. "It is good for the womb. Is that true?" "Yes," he muttered. "It is traditional medicine." "Good," I said. I picked up the cup. But instead of bringing it to my lips, I turned to Neka. "Neka," I said sweetly, "you have been working so hard in this house. You look tired too. And since this tea is good for the womb, why don't you drink it tonight?" Neka froze. She looked at the cup with terror. She knew. "No, madam," Neka stammered, stepping back. "I am fine. It is your medicine." "I insist," I said, my voice becoming hard. I stood up and held the cup out to her. "Drink it, Neka. If it is just herbs, it won't hurt you. Drink it. No, Nneka cried, covering her stomach instinctively. I cannot drink it. Why? Because of the baby in your belly. The room went dead silent.
Obina's mouth fell open. Amara, how do you... Before he could finish, Mama Chinyere screamed, "Don't give it to her!" She lunged across the table and slapped the cup out of my hand. Crash! The ceramic mug shattered on the floor. The black liquid splashed everywhere, staining the white rug. "Why did you do that, Mama?" I asked coldly. "If it is medicine, why are you afraid to let the mother of your grandchild drink it?" Mama Chinyere was breathing hard, her chest heaving. The mask of the loving mother-in-law had fallen off. Now she looked like a cornered animal. "Because you are a dry wood," she screamed at me. "You are useless. 10 years. 10 years and you have given my son nothing but silence. Nneka is carrying a king. I will not let you poison my grandson with your bad luck."
"It is not bad luck, Mama," Chioma said, standing up. "It is murder." Chioma threw the envelope onto the table. The photos, the medical report, and the marriage list scattered in front of Obina. "Look at your mother's work, Obina," Chioma said. "She has been poisoning Amara for 2 months. That tea contains highly toxic alkaloids. We have the lab results." Obina picked up the marriage list. He saw the date. He looked at the medical report. Then he looked at his mother. "Mama," he whispered, "you told me you were just praying for her to leave. You told me you were doing spiritual work. You were killing her?" "I did it for you," Mama Chinyere yelled, pointing a shaking finger at him. "You are a weak man. You want a son, but you don't have the heart to chase this barren woman away. I had to make space. I had to clean the house so your son could be born in peace." Obina looked at the black stain on the rug. He realized that stain could have been my blood. He collapsed into his chair, covering his face with his hands. I looked at them. The weak husband, the pregnant mistress, and the motherless mother. And I felt free.
The room was filled with the sobbing of Obina. He fell to his knees and tried to hold my wrapper. "Amara, please," he cried. "I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know she was poisoning you. I just wanted a child. I was weak. Please forgive me. I will send them away. I will send Nneka back to the village. I will send my mother away tonight. Just don't leave me." I looked down at the man I had loved for 10 years. I saw his tears, but they didn't move me. "You didn't hold the cup, Obina," I said softly, "but you bought the ingredients." He looked up, confused. "Your silence was the ingredient," I told him. "Your desperation was the fire. You let your mother disrespect me for years because you wanted an heir more than you wanted a wife. You created the monster that tried to eat me." I walked past him into the bedroom. I didn't pack everything. I just took my clothes, my documents, and my dignity. I stood in front of the mirror one last time. I took off my wedding ring. It felt heavy, like a shackle I had been wearing for too long. I placed it on the dresser. Chioma came in and took my suitcase. "Are you ready, sister?" she asked. "I have never been more ready," I replied. As we walked out of the house, Mama Chinyere was still sitting in the chair, muttering to herself. Nneka was nowhere to be seen. She had run away in shame. Obina was still on the floor, a broken man in a broken home. I didn't look back.
6 months have passed since that night. I moved into a small apartment. My health returned quickly once I stopped drinking the poison. My skin is glowing again. My hair has grown back thick and full,
My shop is expanding and I have peace of mind that money cannot buy. I heard news about Obina. Nneka delivered the baby, a boy, but she refused to marry Obina. She said she could not live in a house with a mother-in-law who knows how to mix poison. She took the child and left him. Mama Chinyere suffered a stroke 2 months ago. She is now bedridden in the village, alone, with no daughter-in-law to care for her. Obina calls me sometimes. He texts me, begging for another chance. He says the house is silent. He says he has a son, but he has no joy. I never answer. Sometimes we hold on to things because we are afraid of being alone. We hold on to bad marriages, toxic families, and people who do not wish us well, thinking that endurance is a virtue. But I learned the hard way that a marriage built on desperation and silence is a graveyard. If I had stayed, I would be dead. My husband would be married to another woman, and my name would be forgotten. Today, I am alive, I am happy, and I know now that the most important family you must protect is yourself.